You're listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Chef Adrian Martin on the podcast today. He's currently the executive chef at Parkhurst Wine Cellars. That's a winery and tasting room in Southern Oregon, in my neck of the woods. Adrian was born in Texas, but he grew up in St. Martin in the Caribbean. Dad had a restaurant, a Texas barbecue restaurant, of course. Adrian says it was very popular in St. Martin. So he's no stranger to food. He's no stranger to working in a kitchen. Not really something he wanted to do, though. Mom suggested, why don't you go to France and go to culinary school? We can get you an apartment. Adrian was 16. We talk about this a little bit. Spent 4 years there going to culinary school. After that, he did all sorts of things. Private chef, culinary tours across the United States. But he worked a lot on yachts as a chef, a lot. In fact, a lot of people have seen him on a season of Below Deck, reality TV show on Bravo. So we talk a lot about chefing on yachts, the challenges, the appeal. He has great stories about nightmare guests. Great. In the last couple of years, though, he decided time to settle down a bit, planted some roots in Oregon, recently had a baby, and then, yes, again, landed this gig at a winery as the executive chef. So we talk a lot about food, but really what I got out of this conversation, first of all, Adrian's very funny, so we had a good time. But he talked a lot about authenticity, being your true self to show to others, and honor. Here's Adrian Martin. I have to say, I love that you're at work right now. Are you in the kitchen? Are you in the tasting room? Where are you?
I'm in the crew lounge, kind of. This is where we eat. Kind of, I was going to do it in the tasting room, but it's just people are doing construction. There's so much stuff going on right now. It's like, this is not going to work.
There is a lot of stuff going on right now. Adrian Martin, executive chef at Parkhurst Wine Cellars. Although you've done so many other things, we are going to talk about your new gig at Parkhurst. Parkhurst is a tasting room and winery in Southern Oregon, in my neck of the woods. And you signed on, was it this year, to be the executive chef?
Yes, it was about mid-July.
Fantastic. But like I said, you've done a lot of different things. A lot of people may know you. You were on a little show called Below Deck on Bravo, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that too.
It's season 6.
Yes, season 6. But you also, we're going to talk about all of these things, but you also do culinary tours, right? You travel.
Yeah, I've been doing for the past, 5 to almost 6 years. I've been touring the U.S. I've been doing East Coast trips and West Coast trips, just doing private dinners in all the major cities pretty much, and kind of wherever people want me to go, as long as it's on the coast and it aligns with my day.
Right, exactly. It has to be about you, right? Adrian Martin, where are you from originally?
I was born in Texas. Grew up there or lived there until I was 3, then moved to Florida for a year, and then moved to the Caribbean to St. Martin when I was 4 years old. So I'd say I'm from St. Martin, although my grandmother would say I'm from Texas.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, you don't mess around with that. Don't mess with Texas. St. Martin, I know there's 2 sides to St. Martin, right?
Yeah, there's a French side and a Dutch side.
And you lived on the...
So we had a barbecue restaurant on the Dutch side, and then I did my schooling on the French side. So I'd commute every day to go to a French school, and then I'd go back every evening to the Dutch side.
So you had a barbecue restaurant. What kind of barbecue?
Called Texas Pit Barbecue.
Stop. Really? Stop. That's so awesome. On the island.
Yeah, on the island, and it was really fun. My father, he was from Louisiana originally, and he just came up with this really cool concept. It wasn't a game changer, but in the Caribbean, they love barbecue, and they're not really good at it. They'll grill things and, just do basic grilling, but they had never really experienced smoking meats. So you got these big machines, massive smokers come from America, and we'd smoke brisket and the long ribs for like 16, 20 hours with sea grape wood that we'd go harvest on the beach. And it was phenomenal. Yeah, it really, really did good. I worked in the restaurant from when I was about 8 till 15. I would bartend and do the food. And my father was a blues and jazz musician too. So he'd play music with the band while I'd be bartending and making food. So yeah, it was a fun gig.
It sounds like it. Dad sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. It was great growing up.
So you kind of answered my question. I was going to ask you if food was important growing up. Sounds like it was very important.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean, I come from a pretty diverse family. My father's side is from Mississippi. They have a lot of Cajun influences, a lot of Native influences. So he grew up with all that. And he grew up in the 30s, 40s in Louisiana, Mississippi, with all those influences. And then my mother's side of the family, her parents were from Serbia, and then her dad was from Serbia and her mother was from Italy. And so they were like, and then they grew up in France. So there was just like melting pot of influences.
I was just going to say that a melting pot of flavors. Did mom cook?
Yeah, she cooked a lot. My father as well. And it was especially the grandmas. Both of my grandmothers were incredible chefs. My father was an incredible chef. He was very precise, like used recipes all the time. My mother was a little bit more free flow, and I'd say that I'm fully free flow. Like I really have a hard time doing recipes.
So you're more you're cooking from the hip.
That's it. Yeah, I'm instinctive, I'd say, and so it's never the same, but that's what makes it fun. It'd be boring for me if it was always the same.
So at a young age, did you know that this is what you wanted to do then?
No, not at all. I mean, I loved food. I love to eat, really. I like to cook, but just so I could eat it. And when I was about 14 years old, my mother was like, "Listen, you seem to like food." I was quite chubby, and she was like, "You're half French, so you can go in some of the best cooking schools in Europe or in France for free, basically." And I really wanted to move out of the house. I was super independent from a young age, and she was like, "If you get into this prestigious cooking school in Paris, we'll get you your apartment and you can move off at 16." It's like, okay, let's do it. So she's kind of the one who put me into that. She had read a bunch of articles about upcoming chefs and how they were the new kind of it was really a rising kind of profession, that they were getting more notoriety, and especially French chef and cooking in America, I could really have a great deal. And I didn't really know if I was gonna like cooking, but I was like, yeah, I'll take my own apartment. See you later. Moved to France, and over there I found my passion. I was lucky enough to meet some incredible chefs who really inspired me and gave that to me.
Was it, I mean, I guess growing up with, a family that cooks and you are in a restaurant, I mean, I have to imagine culinary school is completely different.
Yes. Yeah, it was very different. I mean, I was coming from the Caribbean, so I came in the first day in my like almost a bathing suit and just really relaxed Caribbean vibe. They're like, go home right now, go get a full suit with tie. They were super, and that was the best school in Paris too. So they were really like very intense about it. And so it was interesting because you go in at 16, so you're still doing all the subjects, math, English, French, whatever. But you have all these culinary aspects of it. So it's theory, you have all the science behind hygiene, you have wine tastings, you have the service side of it as well, and then you have practical cooking as well. And so I would do 2 weeks of that and 2 weeks of work in a restaurant every month. That was kind of my schedule. So I was doing apprenticeships in different restaurants.
Wow. And you were 16, 17.
So, yeah, I started at 16. I did from my 16 to my 20 over there.
Good grief. So 16 by yourself in Paris in an apartment. That's
Yeah.
what was that like, Adrian?
Wow. Right next to the Moulin Rouge too is like in the craziest neighborhood in Paris. So it was fun. I mean, it was hard at times, but I met a lot of cool people. I started dating this girl that was from Paris, and her family lived right there, and so her family kind of took me in. So I had a lot of support from them. Yeah, it was definitely not easy every day, but it was something that really made me grow. My parents had trusted me so much. They were not wealthy, and they were putting the little money they had for me to be able to have an apartment over there. So I felt like I really owed it to them to do a good job.
Sure.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, but talk about independence. Like, I don't think a lot of 16-year-olds would be like gung ho, like absolutely own apartment in a different country where, I kind of maybe speak the language or I don't speak the language or whatever. But yeah, that's super independent.
Yeah, I mean, I was fluent in French, and I had been to France a bunch, so I felt comfortable in the country. And when I was 8, 9 years old, I started making pretty good money at my father's restaurant. So like I said, they didn't have much money, so they were kind of very honest with me. They're like, well, if
Right.
you want to buy it yourself. And so from that age on, like I would buy pretty much all my stuff, my Pokemon cards. I'd go to the movie theater, and St. Martin is very free in that sense, or was in the day. Like I would be hitchhiking at 9, 10 years old. I'd take the bus to go to the movie theater at night. It was a very free life. So they trusted me, and I gave them back that trust. And so from a young age, they saw that I was already very independent. And I think that's what gave them that trust in me, basically. And it all worked out.
It absolutely did. That's amazing. So you're in culinary school, you finish. What's your idea of like what's next? Like what in your head, what do you plan to do? What do you want to do with all of this knowledge you have?
I wasn't really sure. I mean, I had been through really great patches and very rough patches too. During those 4 years, I had worked in 3-star Michelin restaurants where I got my ass kicked, and people were really, the chefs were horrible. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's really what I want to do, but I still wanted to go further in it. Like the last 2 years, I did in the Four Seasons in Paris, the Georges V, it was one of the most prestigious places you could be. We were 80 chefs in there, all groups, between chef, sous chef, and apprentice. I was just an apprentice in there, but I mean the level of pressure and animosity that everybody had towards each other was just something that I didn't really want to keep on experiencing. I wanted to travel through Europe a little bit, so I found a gig in Holland, in Amsterdam. I went to a 3-star Michelin in Amsterdam. Same deal. The chef was a nightmare. He was this big British chef, and he'd just take me and shake me and call me retard. I mean, it was a nightmare. So I lasted a couple months over there, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to the Caribbean. I'll go do my life over there. I'm going to go back. I know that there's a lot of incredible restaurants in St. Martin, seeing as it's half French. We have a really phenomenal food industry over there. We have produce coming from France every week. It's just really developed. So I'll just go over there and do the seasons and see what flows. So yeah, I did Holland for a couple months, went back to the Caribbean, and from there I started working in really nice restaurants and just getting more knowledge. So I did one season in St. Martin, and then my father, who was a yacht captain as well, he was working for these folks who had a 90-foot Norwegian icebreaker that they had remodeled into a beautiful yacht, and they were about to do a 3-month trip in Canada. And so he was like, you know what, why don't you try this? So I went for it. Did 3 months on this yacht as sole chef for a family. It went really well, but I felt like I was missing experience because you need to be super well-rounded to be a yacht chef. You need to know starters, main courses, desserts, any type of cuisine. I mean, people literally anything at any time, and you need to be able to whip it out. So I felt like I was missing a little bit. So I went back to the restaurants, did a couple more seasons in French restaurants in St. Martin. In the summer, I would go to Europe. So I did a couple seasons in Spain in Michelin star restaurants over there, just kept expanding on my knowledge. And when I was 23, my best friend's mother offered me a yacht gig. She was a stewardess. Her boyfriend was a captain. She was like, come on this catamaran. We have a 75-foot catamaran. We're doing a bunch of gigs, and like it could be fun. So I tried out the yachting deal again, and it went super well. I mean, we did a couple months where we rocked it. Like people were so happy. Then out of the blue, I did a yacht chef competition, which I won within I had 24-hour notice when people were preparing for months ahead, and I was like 15 years younger than everybody else. So it just really catapulted me. Like people started writing articles and stuff like that, and then the industry just wanted me basically. So I just had an amount of work that was staggering for the next, forever basically. So from that moment on, I would just work when I wanted to. So I'd go and I'd do 3, 4, 5 months of work in the Caribbean. I'd do sometimes Med season, so a couple months in the Med, and the rest of the time I'd go to Asia, to South America, wherever I wanted on vacation, basically. So I'd usually work maybe 5 to 6 months a year and travel 5 to 6 months a year to develop myself personally, and also develop my culinary knowledge, basically. I mean, because everywhere you go, the cultures are so diverse, and you really learn how people do it. I spent months in India learning how to work spices, in Thailand, how to work the fifth flavor, the chilies, the things like that. In Peru, understanding all the ways of ceviches and marinating. And so I really just traveled a lot for quite a long time.
Super smart, because you're picking up, like you just said, all of these different techniques. You're introducing yourself to maybe spices or things or flavors that you've never either tried or incorporated into your own cooking, right? So you're just
Mhm.
like a little sponge.
Yeah, that's it. It was, yeah, and it was for my culinary self and for my spiritual self as well. I felt like the growth I was having was exponential because everywhere I went, I was discovering like a new
Mm-hmm.
way of seeing the world as
Yeah.
well, which is so important, which was and is still so important to me. And it sees itself in my food too, because like everything you experience, you put on a plate and you give to other people, you know. So it's like, yeah, even a tapestry on the wall or a scent or it's just something you saw on the street or a person you met can inspire you to do a dish. So it was really feeding me on all parts.
Love it.
That was,
I want to back up a little bit. Sounds like you said your dad was a yacht captain as well.
yeah, he was a yacht captain before he was a chef. So when we opened that restaurant in St. Martin, he was still doing yachting. So we
Okay.
opened the St. Martin and he would spend like 3 to 4 months on island, and then the rest of the time he'd be on the yacht, so going back and forth. And then the yacht he was on he ran into something in the Gulf of Mexico. Who knows what? He thinks it was a container or some kind of log or something. The yacht sank, and so he was stranded in the middle of the Gulf with two other people, and he got picked up by a cruise ship by luck. Who say they saved his life? I know,
Wow.
but so after that, he put pause in the whole yachting industry. Came to St. Martin, focused on the restaurant, took it back from the people we had put in management, and we just went full throttle from when I was about 8 years old.
Good grief. So, and then I want to go back a little bit. You said, you're working in these restaurants overseas in Europe with horrible, horrible chefs. And I've heard a few stories, and a lot of people are like, why would you tolerate that? Why would you stay there? And it's, it makes sense to me. If this is your passion, if this is something that you truly love, you just do it, right? In the hopes that you're going to move up and move on and find a better setting, I guess.
Yeah, well, for me, it was understanding all the different modalities of cooking, like how chefs do it, how they gain respect too, because I saw such a diverse array of kitchens. So I would see chefs that would gain respect by fear. I would see chefs that gain respect by love, by respect, by just being themselves and honor, and people wanted to do good to honor them. And I just wanted to learn from the best, basically. And the best aren't always nice people. So it was just, yeah, I was just flowing, and I would push myself and handle it as long as I could. And then when I would feel like my boundaries were being pushed a little too far, then I'd see you later.
Peace out,
Just,
homies. Do you also find too that in those situations, in those scenarios, I mean, you're a leader in your own right, in your own way, and you kind of figure out how the kind of leader that you want to be, right, in your kitchen.
hmm definitely. That's what it is, because so I mean I've never really been a leader in the sense of taking over a kitchen until now. And that's why the yachting industry was so appealing because I was my own boss.
Right.
Times have sous chefs, but the sous chefs will help you here and there, but they're mainly for crew food. Because I mean, when you have like 15 crew on a yacht, you need somebody that can focus on that so you can focus on the guests. So the most I've ran teams was on yachts when we do charters with novices, when people didn't really know what they were doing in terms of like the stewardesses or the mates and stuff like that. Because sometimes I was doing a lot of freelance, so I'd get sent on yachts with crews that were just, they had no clue, they had never done any charters. So then I had to take control of the team. But I've never really taken control of a culinary team like this. So all that experience, every kitchen that I've seen has given me kind of what I need to be able to do this. And I'm still getting my bearings in, it's hard because it's like I'm a very, I'd say, easygoing person. Like I want to be friends with people, but at the same time I want respect. So it's like it's a fine line, but that thing where you're just aggressive with people, I just can't handle. But sometimes you need to shout a little bit to to gain respect as well. So it's really this thing that I'm trying to learn where sometimes I'm a little bit too nice and people will push my boundaries a little too far. So you have to find a middle ground and be like, no, no.
Yeah. No, for sure. I've had bosses and I've been the boss, and I feel that's right on. And I think when you don't yell a lot or you're not maybe a little bit more forceful all of the time, then when you are, it carries a lot more weight, right?
I think, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, Adrian's serious in this moment. Like, let's not fuck around and let's get down to business.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. You can only push it so far, and for me, it's respect. That's the biggest thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's doing their best here. And that's what's so important because we're all putting our necks out. Everybody's name is involved in this. We're all trying to make it work. If it works for one of us, it works for all of us. And that's really the mentality we have here. And that's what attracted me to this whole situation with Mark and Susan, because they were very open about that. They're like, we want everybody to be stoked. We want everybody to come in every day and just be so happy to be here. We don't want it to be like a work situation, like, oh, I'm going to work again, So that really attracted me, and that I feel is what's going on. Everybody's super happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Well, and when it comes to the kitchen crew, that's on your shoulders. Like, that's up to you to make sure that they're happy to come into work every day.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's up to me, but it's also up to like owners and everybody to make employees feel like they're respected in terms of salary, in terms of leave, whatever. You feel like it's a super well-rounded establishment in that sense. Like Mark and Susan make sure that everybody is heard, and I make sure that everybody's heard, and Michael makes sure that everybody's heard. That's the most important thing that I tell my crew. I'd say at least a couple times a week. I'm like, hey, if you have something you want to talk about, don't hesitate. Whatever it may be, just come on, let's talk about it. If you want to talk about it with Mark and Susan or me or whoever, we're here for you. Like we all have to feel that. And if I have something to tell you, don't worry, I'll tell you too.
I love it.
That's one of the biggest things on yachts, because you're stuck with these people like 24/7 for months at a time. And so that open communication is such an important skill to have on those yachts. And it really it taught me a lot being on those boats, because when you leave emotions pent up or just frustrations, then it creates resentment, and it just like snowballs into anger that outbursts and things like that. So
Right.
we're trying to break that cycle here and just be very open about everything.
Beautiful. And Mark and Susan Enlow are the co-proprietors of Parkhurst Wine Cellars. I just wanted to throw that out because you were saying Mark and Susan, and I know who you're talking about, but just wanted to make sure we clarify that. Let's get back to working on yachts. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, being a chef on a yacht is very specific. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really get more specific than this is my job for the next 3 weeks or 1 month or whatever.
It's funny because it's specific and vague at the same time, because every yacht is different, every guest is different. So what I was doing mostly was charters. So it's like mostly week-long charters. And so every week you have a different guests, a different group of guests that arrive, which can be 3 guests or it can be 12. So it's like really reading into what they need. Do they want to be left alone? Do they want interaction? What kind of food do they want? You really have to read their minds, because you give them a preference sheet, but the preference sheet is like, how much can you say about what you like and what you don't like on the preference sheet? You can say the big things, but it's like you can't really go in depth. So you have to be a little psychic, and just like read people really well and be like, okay, how is everybody feeling today? Even it has to do with everything. The weather. How's the weather today? Is it windy and cold? Do we want kind of more hearty dishes? Everybody's going to stay inside. Is it super sunny, hot? People just want things on the fly. So it's really important to be able to read the guest on a daily basis, and just see what the vibe is. And then food is the same. Just be super adaptable, because once we go off the porch, so guests come on board the boat, and then within half an hour we're off at sea. There's no provisioning, or very rarely you can go back to shore to get anything. So it's a lot of freestyling and coming up with solutions, because people are like, oh, do you have my low-fat yogurt 20%? I was like, well, no, you didn't put it on your preference sheet. What are we going to do? Okay, let me skim some milk. No, I'll make, you just always have to find a solution. You can never say no.
Right.
Within exceptions. Sometimes like people want me to fly in liquid nitrogen to make them something. I'm like, no, that is not happening today. I'm very sorry. I would try if I thought I could, but I definitely cannot. So, but yeah, very rarely say no.
Yeah, and you said week charter, so it's like every week you're dealing with not only different guests, different amounts of guests, different personalities. different food restrictions and dietary restrictions. And I love the fact that you said you kind of have to be a mind reader, which I think is brilliant, because how awesome would it be for someone to be like, this is what you're craving today. Here.
Yeah, that's what I try and do.
I love it.
And it's like I never make things that people expect. They're like, oh, I like lasagna, or I like beef Wellington, or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not going to make anything that you've ever had. That's boring. I'm sorry, but that is boring. You can go to any restaurant and have a great beef Wellington or lasagna or whatever. You're coming here to be surprised. And people were always very surprised because they wanted like a menu. They wanted to know what to expect. And then when they didn't know what to expect, like the first couple of days, they're a little bit uncomfortable. Like, oh, what are we going to eat today? Then, yeah, within a day or two, it's like, wow, everything's fantastic. Yeah, whatever you want. Dehydrated monkey tail, give it to us. We'll eat. Just like they just like open up in a way that's like they just give the keys to their nourishment, basically, which is such a big deal. Nourishing yourself is a big part of life. So
they trusted you.
Have that trust, and whatever you serve us, we'll eat and we'll be stoked is a big thing that I really honored, and that I took very seriously, and I still do.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, yes, nourishing yourself is huge, but also food, especially now, has become such a big deal. You have people who will eat anything and everything. Just don't care. I love those people, by the way. And then you have people who have dietary restrictions. No big deal. You can handle it. And then you just have picky eaters, people who just are very wary about texture or a certain smell or flavor. So I think having these folks, random strangers, putting their trust of, you're going to feed me, Adrian Martin, and you're going to feed me really good food, and I'm going to feel good about it. That's a big damn deal.
It's a big deal, especially with those people. I mean, people that are renting, $100,000 to $300,000 yachts for, they're expecting a level of standard, which is like all they want is to be surprised and to be like wowed, basically. And that's really what we're doing at every meal. So it's like breakfast, lunch, dinner, hors d'oeuvres, everything has to just be like, wow. We would have never thought of this. We didn't even know we wanted this until we started eating it. That's really the biggest part of it. And there are a lot of different types of people. One type of person that you didn't mention as well is the picky eaters, but not because they're actually picky eaters, but because they want attention. And it's a big thing, so it's like every plate, oh, I don't know, because they want to have a voice. Yeah. Could you separate this? And do you have something else? So yeah, of course, no problem. I mean, I had these one guests. I remember it was so funny. This woman, she never wanted to eat what everybody else was eating. So I had to make up the craziest stuff. Like it was in my early days. So it was the more basic charters. It wasn't like a $300,000 yacht. It was like a $50,000 yacht a week, which was still a lot, Came in and she's like, what are we having for lunch? I'm like, oh, everybody's having like local fish. She's like, oh no, I don't want that. It's like, okay, well, I have this albino chicken that we just flew in from the Himalayas. She's like, oh yeah, I'll have that. Yeah, that sounds great. The next day I was like, so yeah, I'm just doing like chicken breast for everybody. She's like, oh. I was like, oh, well, we have this fresh snapper that was just fished right off the boat. So I would reverse the things every couple of days and just invent this whole scenario for her of, I mean, it was really good produce, obviously, but I had to just fluff it up so much that she would just accept to have it. And she just felt special like that, So you just have to sometimes people just want to feel special. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Make you feel special.
I think you could probably be going to counseling at this point, just because, right? You've been dealing with so many different personalities.
Or I could be a counselor.
Sorry, say that again.
Or I could be a counselor.
Exactly. I don't know if I would be a good guest for you or a bad guest, because you could literally put like hot dogs down in front of me and I would be like, dope. I love a good hot dog. Yeah. Thanks, chef.
Yeah. That's a good guest for me, because then you're open to anything I feed you. It's really exciting for me. It's like if you're requesting hot dogs, like that's the only thing you want, and that's for me is a bad guess. Like that's a tough one.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I promise.
I was working a year in New York for these people that had just immense wealth. I was working in their $120 million apartment in New York. The view on Central Park is beautiful. This guy, his favorite food, I kid you not, was a Hebrew National hot dog with Heinz beans. Like that was the must of the must. If I made him that, I was like, I can make you the hot dog and the bun. No, he's like, I just want my Hebrew National hot dog steamed with this bun and a can of Heinz beans. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, that's it. But that was a frustrating job for me. And that was just like, oh, okay, great.
Well, you're in a
Hot
box
dog.
at that point. You're in a little tiny box of hot dogs and beans.
That's it. Yeah. It was just Dunkin' Donuts every morning. I was just like, wow.
Oh
Luckily,
man.
and it was funny because his wife, she wanted super high-end food. She wanted like, but every day she'd make up an array of dietary restrictions. So I had a book of all the dietary restrictions she had, and at the end it was maybe 20 pages of just like, and it would change weekly. But so I had to write it down with dates on it because she'd be like, I'd serve her something. She's like, oh, I told you I don't like this. I was like, actually, no, you see, on the 7th last week you told me you did like this and you wanted this, or vice versa, so I had to document everything so that she wouldn't get me because she was always trying to get me like that.
Oh my gosh. You are a saint, Adrian. You're a saint. What are the challenges? I mean, they may be obvious. What are the challenges working on a yacht, chefing on a yacht?
Well, the movement already is the big one.
Yep.
Just strange how the constant sway, I'd say, and then it's a small sway and then it's like so you're like it's just like falling on you, so that's a big one. The crew, who can be great or who can be really bad, but you're stuck with whoever you got, so that's a tough one. The fact, like I was talking about earlier, that once you leave the ports you have no access to provisions, so that's something where my shopping for yachts is literally, I have no list. I just go through every single aisle of the grocery store and just buy everything that I feel is going to be relevant, and I just stock the kitchen as well as I can because once you leave the port, you have no access to food. So having that, just like being able to freestyle with whatever you have, but as well trying to be as prepared as you can is a big one. So those are the main challenges, I'd say. And then just dealing with guests, just like you never know what you're going to get. So I've been lucky, I'd say. 80% of the time it was great people. 20% of the time it was like and maybe 5% it's like, oh.
Yeah,
I've been lucky.
I want to know about that 5% nightmare guests.
I mean, it's just people that can't be satisfied. It's just like never happy. Everything is not in particular with the food, but there's always something. It's just like, oh, this and this and this and this and this, and just like very overwhelming, more, and this and more. You're like, give me a break here, please. I'm doing everything I can.
I know. I'm doing everything I can. So then what is the appeal? Because you've done this so much and for so long. What's the appeal of working on a yacht?
The innovation, where it's already I'm my own boss. So I'm cooking, within people's dietary restrictions, I'm cooking whatever I want. So I'm my own chef. And that enabled me to expand my culinary knowledge so much because I wasn't cooking anybody else's portfolio, their recipes, their things, I was creating everything myself. So it was a big advantage traveling, seeing all these beautiful spots, being able to be free as well, because yachting is very restricting, but it's very freeing as well. Because when there are no guests on board, you're on this multi-million-dollar yacht and it's basically yours. You're in a guest cabin, you're using the toys, we go anchor in these most beautiful spots. And it's like, so living a lifestyle of, that I could not live normally because I'm not a billionaire,
Yeah.
But so yeah, it has a lot of appeal too. It's just exciting. It's an exciting life.
How did you get the gig on Below Deck, the reality TV show on Bravo? How'd that happen?
I'm not sure. They contacted me.
Okay, rad.
There was a actor that, I guess it's because I had a good name in the industry. I am wondering if it wasn't one of my clients that had some kind of pull in something that was just like that, put a word in for me that was like, oh, you should check out this guy. He's like, I think that's what it is. But yeah, as far as I know, it's just a random or a headhunter that just contacted me. It was like, we know you have a name in the industry. Apparently in season 5, so the season before me, the chef had really messed up he wasn't really a yacht chef. He was just this chef that they had found, I don't know where. And they had a lot of lashback because of this. So a lot of the fans were like, this isn't a real yacht chef. What are you doing? And because they had promoted somebody that they knew was going to bring a lot of drama instead of somebody that could really do what he was meant to be doing, which was cooking, cooking at a high level. And so that's why they were looking for somebody that they knew could really do a good job. And I think they hired me because of that. And they were like, oh, I don't think he's going to be too dramatic, but if we push his buttons enough, he'll probably lose his shit. And so they tried. They tried during the whole season. They wanted me to create more drama. And they came to me a couple of times like, do something, scream, fight. I was like, I'm good, bro. Like, this is a high stress environment for sure, but I'm doing my meditation every day and I'm just keeping it cool because for me, the most important thing is my craft. I'm trying to do a good job for these guests because no matter if it's a reality TV or show or whatever, this is my job. This is what I've been doing for years and I'm going to do it as good as I can. All the rest is like, that's not in my contract. You didn't hire me to create drama. You hired me to cook on this boat. So
good
they
for
couldn't
you.
do anything, and I'm like, I'm not going to create drama out of nowhere just to get 10 more followers. Like, I didn't even have Instagram when I did Below Deck. I was like, I don't even care about your whole thing. Just like, I was just living my life. And they came to me and I just thought it could be a fun opportunity. I had no other, I just like trying everything in life. And I was like, cool, let's try it out.
Yeah. Drama. When I think of you, I don't think of drama. I just think cool as a cucumber and pretty laid back, but very focused too at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I try. So that's why, I have a solid practice and I try and meditate, just take care of my mind and my body as much as I can, because otherwise I'm not cool as a cucumber. It's work. Yeah. It's like, if I don't, take care of myself, then, I'm.
Well, good for you. And I will say the lesson for today is if you do a good job in this world and if you work hard and create a good name for yourself, it pays off, right? Like, very much happened to you with the gig at Below Deck. Like you worked your butt off and you did such a good job and someone put your name in and there you go.
That's it. Be true to yourself. That's because a lot of people on that show, they sell out.
Mm-hmm.
So try and create all this drama to have more following, to have, to make the production happy and things like that. But it's your image, your image is your honor. Kind of, it's what you have in this world. You're putting that out in the world. Also, you're inspiring people to act a certain way. Like, I really wanted to be the way I was brought up. I wanted to be honorable. I wanted to project love and understanding and compassion because I knew millions of people were going to be watching me. And I don't want that to be something that people are like, oh, look, Chef Adrian, it's not, he's being aggressive. Let's be aggressive in the kitchen too. I wanted to portray a way of being, and it really resonated. A lot of people reached out to me, asking me about meditation, asking me about, I was in an open relationship at the time, asking me about open relationships, all these things like, eating mindfully, more vegetarian options, things like that. So it felt good to be able to give that to people, even if I just inspired one person. I think that's a win.
Yay, that is a win. Authenticity. It's all about being your true self, and it spreads, it really does spread, as you saw from that experience.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. How did you get to Oregon?
I did a road trip 7 years ago with my best friend. We're doing the West Coast. I had never done the West Coast in my life. I've traveled all over the world, but I hadn't done much of America. He had an RV and he was in Santa Cruz. He called me up and was like, hey, let's do the coast. Let's go to festivals and stuff. And I had a girlfriend at the time who was going to the Beloved Festival in Oregon, which is next to Eugene. And so she called me. She's like, let's do this. Perfect. And then so we came up to Oregon. Had no idea what to expect. We got into Ashland. That was the first place we discovered in Oregon. Just loved it. Right off the bat, everybody was so cool. Good vibes, great food, good mentality, beautiful scenery. We just kept on going up, went up to Eugene, all the old growth forest, the hot springs, the Umpqua, all that. We're just like, wow, this place is cool.
Mm-hmm.
We fell in love with it. We were both from the Caribbean. So we had grown up on an island that's tiny where you don't have much space and it's the ocean. You know, if you don't like the ocean, you're kind of in trouble. And I love the ocean, but that's all there is. And we wanted more of a diverse scenery. We wanted seasons, we wanted land. So we did that road trip, kind of fell in love with Oregon. And about 8 months later, we called each other, we're like, let's buy a property, you know, let's check out what there's in Oregon. And so we came back the summer after and bought a property outside of Eagle Point that we started developing then. And yeah, we've been spending mostly the summers here for the past 6 years. And then I've been slowly moving in more and more until this year. Now I'm going to be spending all year here. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it safe to say you're settling down?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
You got a
Big time.
baby.
I got a baby. I got a 15-month-old little girl.
Amazing. I love that. Are you exposing her to, because I feel like you were exposed to all of these wonderful things growing up as a child. Are you doing the same for her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when she was 6 months, we did 6 months old, we did a 3-month trip. We did Guatemala, St. Martin, Puerto Rico, all of the East Coast, Nebraska, Texas, Colorado, and then back here with her. So
beautiful.
Yeah, she was really, yeah, it was super fun. She had a great time, and like she was exposed to so much food too, culture, like all sorts of things. Like we were just reading something like a month ago about trying to expose your child to like 100 foods before they're 1 year old. And I was like, wow, she was probably exposed to 100 foods before she was 6 months. Yeah, she's just like everything, and now she's so open to it. She eats literally everything. So that's
what a
cool.
lucky kid. I feel like we've done children such a disservice by allowing them to just eat PB&J and chicken nuggets for their whole entire lives.
It's a cop-out, and it just creates this thing where they don't have any food education. They don't know how to take care of themselves, because that's one of the biggest part of taking care of yourself is nourishing yourself. So if you don't know how to cook for yourself or even eat just in a healthy way, yeah, it's a big one. And the sugar as well. Sugar is highly addictive. So when you give sugar to a young child, they don't know better. And then they just crave it. And it just creates these addictions at a very young age. So that's something that I would really like to work on is education for our youth, and just teach them ways to feed themselves that are awesome, where they could love things like broccoli. You go to the cafeteria and the broccoli is all mushy and gross. Of course, nobody likes broccoli.
Right.
Broccoli is one of my favorite vegetables. If it's done right, it's the most incredible, flavorful, crunchy thing. But if it's mush, it's gross. Yeah. It's just like,
preach on that. I think it's so important not only to teach youngsters about food, but also how to prepare and cook food. It's so incredibly important. And we learn when we're like in college or out of college. And I feel like that's just too late at that point.
Yeah. And it's like once we're in college or out of college, we're so busy that a lot of people don't even take the time to learn. They just go to the fast foods or all the restaurants that are very quick and to go, everything. Now it's so easy. You just go on your phone for a minute and you get a dish coming from a restaurant in 2 seconds. But it's like, I don't know, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to work in a place here, like be a chef in a place here. Is one of the reasons why we want to do this property, is so we can have control on what we're making. Because at the end of the day, you never know where food is coming from. You never know what they're putting on it. You just don't know. So it's really important to have that control as well on your food sources, I believe. Yeah,
me too. Preach, honey. All right, we're going to wrap up a little bit, but I do want to talk about your current gig quickly at Parkhurst Wine Cellars. You're the executive chef. And that's how I met you. Excuse me, actually, is we did a little food and wine pairing, and it blew my socks off. Everything was so incredible. And I asked you this that night. While the food was amazing, there was no real flavor profile. Nothing really kind of came out to me strong, but that was on purpose. You did that on purpose. Explain that. Of course.
Yeah. So, we're working with the wines here. So it's, if flavor profile is too strong, then the wines lose their power. Basically, you lose that flavor from the wine. So we're really trying to work with the combination. So the wines are balanced and the foods are balanced, basically. So we're trying to, if you put those two together, then you get more complex flavors. But everything we work with, we try and just balance. We'll have hints of acidity, hints of sweetness, of different texture, but it's balanced in a way that it doesn't take over the wine.
Balance in the wine, balance in the food to make it a complete, tasty experience.
That's it. We're really trying to showcase the wine and the food here. I mean, we are mainly a winery, so that's our focus, is making food to showcase the wine. And then I think the wine showcases the food too. So it's kind of a balancing act here that we're doing. And yeah, trying to find fun, exciting ways to cook food that people have heard about, maybe, and just put it in a different way.
I was going to ask you that. It's also about exposure a little bit too, doing something that's really completely different in a winery in Southern Oregon. We haven't seen a lot of pairings like this here.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for me because I've just been a private chef for so long. So putting my foot down in the valley and being able to create something like this with these beautiful people it's a fun gig, and just I'm all about innovation. If it's done before, it's cool, but it's kind of boring in a sense, So I just want to push the boundaries of what people are used to. And that's what Mark and Susan want to do too. We just want to go further in what people expect. Michael as well, the head of the GM and the head of service, is just like phenomenal. Him and his crew do such a good job in explaining everything, and they helped us a lot with the wine pairings too. So we tasted everything together and then came up with logical pairings together. And that's what we're just going to keep on doing as the menu evolves.
Yeah. Woohoo. Well, I'm very excited that you're here in Southern Oregon, and I'm going to stop in and see you as much as I can. I want to wrap up and get to the final three quickly because you got to go back to work. Best advice you've ever been given?
I'd say it was from my father. Your honor is your word. And that's something that's just kept me strong my whole life. It's whatever you say, do it, or you better have a good reason not to, and it's just, yeah, I think that's our honor is one of the things that keeps us strong, and keeps us having faith in ourselves, I think. And just, yeah, that's what keeps me going every day. It's like, I know that what I say I'm going to do. And that's what people see in me as well. So they know that I'm reliable. That's why my yacht chefing career has been so successful, because people can call me at any time, anywhere. They call me up and ask me to do something and I say yes, they know I'm going to do it. And that's such a big one. In the chefing industry, especially the culinary industry, a lot of people are all over the place. There's some crazy I'm crazy, but there's some crazy chefs, so I think it's nice for people to know that they can count on me.
I love that. That's so important too. And you're right. It is very rare. What's your happy place?
The farm. We have this property in Eagle Point that's just phenomenal. This place it's 23 acres, just forest, ponds, rivers. It's Disneyland. Peter Pan meets Dali. It's just really, it's a wonderful place that we've just been developing. We've been building everything out of reclaimed wood, and we're fully off the grid. It's a really fun place.
Beautiful. It is Disneyland. Disneyland, Southern Oregon style.
That's it.
In all things food and drink, what do you crave? What always sounds good?
Peking duck probably is one of my favorites.
Really?
I love, but like Peking duck in Beijing, like the one that's like super crispy skin, super soft meat with like the little crepes and the hoisin sauce. Oh, yes. Thank you. Sticky rice as well. I'd say Asian food is my big, Asian food in general, when it's really well done, has flavors that are just like really, but then at the same time, it just depends where I'm at, the weather, whatever, on a hot day, a nice ceviche. Yeah. Drink wise, Cadillac margarita, probably in the evening to do a Cadillac margarita, but I think that's really nice. A nice glass of like our sparkling brut rosé. It's really
so good.
Really nice as well. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's just really light and uplifting. Yeah, honestly, I like it all.
Oh, yay. You have been so much fun. Thank you for doing this. I know you have to get back to work, but I really appreciate you opening up and talking to me. And you're really funny. I didn't expect you to be so funny.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love a funny human. Adrian Martin, again, thank you so much. And if you're in the Southern Oregon area or traveling to Southern Oregon, go see him at Parkhurst Wine Cellars and go taste some of his fabulous food and the wine pairings that they have there. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Trish. Thanks for your time.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.